Now, let us prepare our hearts and our minds for a time of meditation. I invite you to find a comfortable position in your seats. Close your eyes if you wish, and take a few deep breaths. Let go of any distractions or worries that may be on your mind.
Expressing the spirit, embracing the human, honoring the divine in all, and caring for the earth. The skies above enfold me in wondrous stars and light. Below my feet, dear Mother Earth gives all I need for life. I am spirit, I am human, I am one with all there is, living in the mind of God without an end. Expressing the spirit, embracing the human, honoring the divine in all, and caring for the earth.
Take another deep breath as we prepare ourselves to enter the stillness. What a beautiful song opens our hearts for this time. Thank you. With each in-breath, we breathe in the light and the love of God. Experience the light and the love of God as your true nature coming into your very being. And with each out-breath, let us release what no longer serves us. Breathe in the comfort of God. Release the chatter of the mind. Breathe in the wonder of creation. Release the distractions of our lives. Breathe in the wondrous healing of spirit. And release the to-do lists, the things we think have to happen. Breathe in the freedom of just being. And breathe out responsibilities. Breathe in the truth of your everlasting soul. And let us release the roles that we've taken on in this lifetime. We stand here now in the light, our souls bare, grateful for life, with open arms, unmasked. Here I am, Lord. Jesus reminded us that to enter the kingdom, we must become like little children. I invite you now to imagine a small child. It could be your own or a neighbor's or a grandchild, and it could be your own self. If you can, imagine your own self as a child in a happy place, in a place of joy, of no cares, born of the divine, unburdened by any conditioning, unburdened by beliefs and any sense of self-righteousness, being fully open to childlike wonder, touching the hem of the garment, reaching out to all beings with love and just curiosity, open-minded and exploring nature, connected to all life. Or it is the child that makes no divisions, but is completely connected to the oneness of all life. I invite us to take this image of ourselves as a child. Place yourself somewhere beautiful, a meadow, a forest, by the sea, by the river, with open eyes looking at the fluttering of leaves for the very first time. And let us go into the quiet with the heart and the wonder and the awe and just the blank slate of a small child into the quiet. Thank you, God, for the kingdom, for life, for childlike wonder, for our ability to move freely and to grow and to awaken to new ideas. We reinvigorate ourselves to take on a new life with full recognition that we are fearfully and wonderfully made in the image of the divine itself, here to bring heaven to earth through us and as us. And as we come to a close, I invite you to join me now in these affirmations derived from the prayer of St. Francis. You may choose to speak each statement aloud or in your mind. Lord, I make myself an instrument of peace. Where there is hatred, I sow love. Wherever there is injury, I refrain from injuring. Where there is doubt, I have faith in my own convictions and ability to move mountains. Where there is despair, I give hope. Where there is ignorance, I bring illumination. Where there is darkness, I bear light. Where there is entrenchment, I inspire with a new vision. And where there is sadness, I allow myself to feel from the depth of my soul. And I stay focused on what is good and right and possible in the world. Knowing the divine truth that we are all one, I bless all life, all living beings, not just those I consider to be like me. I choose to live as loving kindness and compassion. And because of that, no beings tremble before me. For I am love, I am peace, I am freedom. And so it is. I invite you to take another deep breath. As you breathe, open your eyes and awaken to the beauty and the wonder and the splendor and the connectivity we have with all beings, all sentient beings, all life on this planet. We thank God for the childlike wonder. We thank God for the children in our hearts. We thank God for awakening. And so it is.
I am a child of this universe. The ocean dances at my feet. The wind plays a melody through my hair. I am loved at every turn. I am kissed by Mother Earth. Yes, I am a child of this universe. The sun warms me in its embrace. The stars have aligned for me in the sky. I am honored by all life. I am held by Father Time. Every blade of grass, every shaking leaf on the tree, every mountain top sings to the glory of God moving through me. Well, I am a child of this universe. Through my breath, all of life can breathe. I plant the seeds with my every dream. I am loved at every turn. And give a kiss to Mother Earth. Yes, I am a child of this universe. I greet the God in each face. I am a channel for peace to flow. Oh, I honor all of every shaking leaf on the tree, every mountain top sings of the glory of God moving through me and moving through you and moving through us, moving, moving, moving.
The music ministry of David Trolley. Thank you, David. What a perfect song to introduce our guest speaker today to. We welcome this morning. Welcome, Carol, again. Good to have you with us. Carol Saunders, Reverend Carol Saunders, comes to us from her home and property in rural Wisconsin, where she lives with her husband, Greg Harbaugh, and they've been there since 1981, and together they have 3 adult daughters. Greg, her husband, is a former NASA shuttle astronaut, which has made life very interesting. Wow, yes. Carol, now this is interesting too. Carol earned a Bachelor of Science degree in chemical engineering from Purdue University, and she worked for 20 years in the energy business in Houston, Texas. And after going to Unity and going to the Interfaith Ministry, she founded and led a church for 7 years. And then her purpose was to create an alternative church that included the message, the world, and God in the midst. And that was the start of her podcast that she now has, The Spiritual Forum. And in 134 episodes, she covered a broad spectrum of spiritual topics. Wow, 134 episodes. Guided again by Spirit in 2021, she shifted the Spiritual Forum to a new format, conversations on spiritual living with guests, and had a call-in format to her podcast. Her podcast is still out there for us today. And I'm sure we'll put the link up at some point in the chat. And if you go to her website, you can just go directly to the podcast. Carol also leads an annual retreat at Unity Village called Whole Planet Spirituality Forum and Retreat to actively resurrect the early teachings of Unity on spirituality and animals. And one of the things that caught my eye on her website recently was her 22-page booklet, The Forgotten Teachings of Charles Fillmore, her talk title for today, which is a compilation of Unity's histories, early teachings, and practice of ethical vegetarianism. Please help me welcome our guest today, Reverend Carol Saunders.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, everybody, for being with me today. I just want to say about my podcast, I'm close to episode 300. I'll be at episode 300 in about 4 weeks. So it's out there. I'm on YouTube and I'm on all the podcast platforms as well. And Richard did mention, I didn't plan on doing this, but I did put this booklet together. It's an easy, actually my talk comes from that booklet. But it's kind of a compilation of the Fillmore teachings. Now, my talk today is on PowerPoint, so let me share my screen. I'm going to do it right, Richard. I'm going to do it right. Okay. Did I do it right? Okay, great. All right. All right. So I'm talking today about the forgotten teachings of Charles Fillmore, just as a little bit of background. I was at a writer's workshop once many years ago, and I was just having such trouble figuring out what was supposed to come through me. And finally, I just had this complete break in my heart. And it's unusual for me because, as Richard said, I have a past of being an engineer. I tend to be very balanced brain, leaning left brain a little bit. So to really completely, fully open my heart and break open, it's a real big deal for me. And I really feel like the Fillmores came and tapped me on the shoulder and said, we want you to teach this. We want you to bring this back into unity. And, I don't know about you guys, but whenever I'm tapped on the shoulder by God or spirit or great masters, I usually say, no, 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 not me, somebody else, please. But I have taken this on. It's a difficult subject because people are very defensive about this. Now, I'm not here today to talk about animals. I would be happy to come back and talk about all of the wonderful attributes of animals and their sentient nature and all of that. I'm really focusing today on the Fillmore teachings. I just think it's so interesting. Oh gosh, okay, it's not advancing. There we go. All right. I want to be really, really clear that I'm not here to proselytize. I do live a vegan life to the best of my ability, but I'm not here to convert. I'm not here to blame. I'm not here to shame. I'm not here to make myself better or higher or anything like that. We are all on a path together. I'm really just here to share this unity history that I think is so precious and so fascinating, and to perhaps encourage reflection in you and perhaps inspire you to engage in dialogue or take a deeper dive into this whole subject matter yourself. You can see from my meditation and also the songs, thank you so much for the songs. Really, I'm focusing on this childlike mind. Charles Fillmore said it's a childlike mind that finds the kingdom. Just as Jesus said, you have to become as a little child to enter the kingdom. And to me, what that is the space of not knowing. It's the space of not having to defend. It's a space of not having to be right. It's the space of wonder and curiosity. And when you're in wonder and curiosity, you can take in new information and go, oh, that's interesting. And then you can decide what to do with it. But our adult minds that are so laid over with layers and layers of conditioning, when new information comes to us, we defend, we deflect, we blame, we shame, we project, we do all those things. And so I just encourage us to listen to Charles and remind ourselves to come with a childlike mind with all of this new information. And some of it you may know, some of it I think will be new for you. I want to just lay a little bit of groundwork for the Unity history. I think most of you know some of this, that in 1889, Charles and Myrtle created a prayer ministry that eventually became Silent Unity, and they also started their first publication of Modern Thought. This is the beginning of the Unity movement as we know it. In 1892, though, Charles and Myrtle, that's when they signed their declaration and covenant. That this is their personal commitment to the spirit of truth, where they wrote 3 short paragraphs about committing their lives to the spirit of truth and discovering that and teaching that. And that really took the unity teachings kind of up to, or the unity institution kind of began to institutionalize unity, began to be a message out in the world. So something happened to them. I'm mentioning this because in 1895, okay, so this is just a few years after Silent Unity being created and after their declaration and their covenant, they had dinner with a guy named Harry Church. And this is where the whole ethical vegetarian beginning of unity, where it started. So Harry Church was one of their printers for the Modern Thought magazine at the time. And Harry was a Seventh-day Adventist. And I'm just going to tell a short story before I go to the next slide. So he was a Seventh-day Adventist, and Seventh-day Adventists practiced generally the diet that was given to humankind in the Garden of Eden, which was plants. It's right there, Genesis 1:29. After God gives humankind dominion, he says, okay, now I want you all to eat plants. And that's the story. And the Seventh-day Adventists generally believe that is a God diet, and that is the healthiest diet, and that also is in line with compassion. Okay, so Harry Church is working for the Fillmores, and then he comes to dinner, and he sees on their table some sort of a roast or some sort of a animal dish, and he's like, what is this dead animal doing on the middle of your table? He's kind of aghast because he knows Charles and Myrtle Fillmore to just be so loving and so talking about the oneness with all, and so deeply steeped in spirit, that he was really kind of confused about how you can do that. And I think he might have even called them out as hypocrites. So I think that Charles and Myrtle had this huge awakening at that dinner in 1895. And it's amazing to me that they changed radically and very dramatically very quickly. Charles, who, by the way, his father was a trader with the Ojibwa tribe, which I believe mostly traded in furs. And Charles immediately stopped eating meat. He stopped wearing leather. He stopped any animal skin or fur. And he began to write and speak about our relationship with animals and how it also is important if we're to be love and peace on the planet. Now, Myrtle, everyone knows Myrtle as this sweet, loving woman. And this is what she had to say about this. The appetite left me without even thinking about it. And I'm sure I outgrew the demand for murdered things. Now, I think that's a funny thing for Myrtle to say. What I think is so interesting about the Fillmores is just how clear they were in their communications once they came to the realization that oneness includes all, universal love includes all. And then they took a stand. They didn't take this as just a private thing that they did. I've done that before, been a private vegetarian, but never really talk about it. They took a stand and they made a statement that unity opposes the use of any product that necessitates the taking of life, whether it's food substance, wearing apparel, or general utility. Now, I think that's so interesting, and I think that's so bold. And again, this is in the early 1900s. Charles began writing then in 1903 about this in his diatribe called As to Meat Eating. So I think it's so interesting that the Fillmores didn't just become vegetarians and they were, kind of quietly vegetarians, and then they had their ministry. They saw this whole thing as an integration of their teachings, that we must widen our circle of compassion to include all beings. So Charles, he wrote and taught about this for 40 years. Now, I'm not going to say this is his primary topic. We know this wasn't his primary topic. He talked about a number of things, the 12 powers. He talked about tons of things. He taught us so much, metaphysical Bible. But this was also infused in his sermons, his essays, his books, and there was a column in Unity magazine, a vegetarian column in Unity magazine that was published every time that magazine came out. Now, what I think is also very interesting is most people come to Unity and they feel just embraced in love and just that feeling of connection and peace. And I believe the Fillmores were also that way. And yet, their communication was very direct and very passionate on this topic. And I think some of us might be really thrown off by it a little bit. And I'm just giving you a heads up because I'm going to share some of Charles's writings. And some of you may go, "Oh, wow, that's wow. He's really coming at us hard." I'm just sharing from the standpoint of, I think it's interesting to know what our founders taught. Now, I went to the Unity archives, and there's rows and rows and rows of folders. And I went to the one on anything that had to do with ethical vegetarianism, anything that had to do with animals. I pulled it out of the file. I meant to bring all the copies that I made. And I made copies of almost everything, probably not everything, because there's a lot. And then I brought it home. And I took a look at it and I just read through it all. And what I saw is these patterns kind of popping out at me that Charles and Fillmore didn't just talk about, like what they ate and why, but really about our relationship with animals and why it mattered. And the five categories that I saw that popped out at me were that how our relationship with animals impacted our ability to express universal love, our ability to live ethically, our ability to spiritually develop, our ability to manifest world peace. And then this last part is just they would talk about the metaphysics or the energy of consuming flesh, or the energy of harming animals. So these were the 5 general categories that I saw kind of pop up at me with patterns around this topic of our relationship with animals. And I'm going to go through each one of these and just share a couple excerpts of different publications, different essays and different talks that Charles had given, just so you can get a sense of what he would say about these different topics and how our relationship with animals related to these. And after I go through that, I'm going to go through some of the actions that they also took. So universal love is the first topic. And of course, we know universal love is indiscriminate, no boundaries. This idea that the rain falls on the righteous and the unrighteous alike, that everybody is loved. No one is unworthy of our consideration, that we are all worthy of our consideration. And universal love seeks good for all and seeks to minimize suffering. And many of us on the spiritual path, we live this fully with our human friends, our human family. Some of us just live with that fully within our political party. We have opposition that we don't like the other guys. Some of us live with that way with our country and we don't like the other guys. But in unity, most of us draw the circle around humans, and we're not fully considering expanding that boundary of universal love to animals. But the Fillmores did. Here's something that Charles wrote in the essay, Flesh Eating Metaphysically Considered, and this was written in 1910. All right, brace yourself. The master on the spiritual plane is not a slave driver. He does not use force. The only law that he recognizes is love. And to this law, he must be true in all its ramifications throughout the universe of forms. He must love every creature, every beast in the field, every fowl in the air. He must flow forth in protecting streams when any creature is in danger of violence or destruction. He must recognize all life as God's life, destined by a wise arrangement to be in its right place wherever he finds it. Thus, he cannot in any way sanction the killing of animals for food. Now, we harm animals in lots of other ways too. We harm them for lab testing, for medical testing, for cosmetic testing, for pharmaceuticals, for, I said entertainment, for clothes, all sorts of ways. But the Fillmores really did focus on how we kill animals for food because it's so rampant. I think this is a beautiful, beautiful statement that we are here to protect, recognize God's love, and to protect any creature that's in danger. And if you just stop and think about that, what would that look like in your life if you took on being a protector? So I'll just leave that question out there for you. Here's another from the Vegetarian column on June of 1915. From Genesis to Revelation, promises of the reign of divine love and peace and mercy in all the earth are made again and again. The prophet Isaiah, in his picture of the glorious reign of divine love, says, "They shall not hurt or destroy in all my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord." God is love, and those who know God loves as God loves. They are glad to be humane, and they willingly refrain from anything that will cause suffering to any living creature. Now, I'm not going to go into this now, happy to in the breakout room, but a lot of people say, well, God in the Old Testament was really okay with hurting animals. I will be happy to address that question in the breakout room. I don't believe God as love is supportive or encouraging of harm for any of God's creation, and neither did Charles. So that just gives you an idea. There's many, many, many more statements and essays and sermons that he wrote about universal love as it relates to animals, and those are just the 2 that I picked for today. Now, the next topic is ethical living. Unity is kind of interesting. Unity doesn't really approach a lot about morality. Ethical living is a system of moral principles that guides our behaviors. And to live ethically, we're called to live with respect for the freedom and well-being, not just of ourselves, but of others, to really consider reality beyond our immediate desires, that there are others in this world that have the same desires for life that we do. And ethical living calls us to refrain from exploitation and the oppression of others. And the Fillmores made a connection to exploitation. As long as we're exploiting animals, we're going to be exploiting people. And so the idea is that we want to stop the idea under exploitation, being that somehow you are something that I can derive benefit for, that is your purpose. And so here's a couple things that Charles said. This is at the essay As to Meat Eating in 1903. When these abundant products of nature, meaning plants, are found spread upon her green garnished tables everywhere, why should man dye his hands with the lifeblood of things that resent the carnage and cry out in terror when his cruel knife is raised against them? This is in direct opposition to the divine law of freedom and right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness for all of God's creatures. Isn't he direct? I think he's really direct. I mean, the times, as a pulpit minister, the times I brought this up, I'm dancing around these topics, and he goes boom right at it. And here's another one. This is so interesting. To meet the demand of the flesh eater's ferocious appetite, thousands of men are daily steeped in blood and beer. These men are made to cultivate the cruel side of their natures in slaying defenseless animals in horribly inhumane ways. No man or woman liveth unto himself alone, and you are responsible for the stumbling of your brother in the slaughterhouse. I think this is so interesting because many people forget that when we're eating chicken or steak or bacon or whatever, that there are these workers that are doing this horrific work for us. And in fact, slaughterhouse workers have 4 times the incidence of domestic violence of anybody else. So, they are forced, I should say, to de-empathize themselves, become unfeeling machines of killing. And it really, really messes with their psyche. Now, Charles is saying we're responsible for that. If we're going to live ethically, we're responsible for that, and that we should refrain from that because we're harming people as well. And that was from his essay, The Twins Eating and Drinking, in June of 1915. There's a lot more to talk about ethics, but I just wanted to give you a taste of this. The next area that he talks about regarding animals is spiritual development. And spiritual development is our ability to grow in consciousness. We're all about that in Unity. We don't just stop. We continue to grow. And yet there are places where we do stop. There are places where we go up to the wall and we go, not going beyond that. And sometimes it is the animal-human interface. When we develop spiritually, we allow our thoughts and beliefs and priorities and attachments to change. We've always been this way, but we can be that way. And that's why we have the 12 divine powers within us, so that we can have the strength and the will to change when we know better. And this is also, spiritual development is also about like putting off our old self, which is what's discussed in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 22. So this is what Charles had to say in the book Atom Smashing Power of the Mind in 1949. There's a relation between thinking and eating, and as you grow spiritually, the character of your food and all that pertains to eating may have to be changed in conformity with the new order of things. If you will leave meat and all animal products out of your food, you will see a change for the better. Now, I want to pause for a moment because I want to be very, very clear. Just because people stop eating meat doesn't mean they're spiritually developed. Okay, I'm not saying that all the vegans out in the world are highly spiritually developed. There are lots of mean vegans out there. I'll be the first to say that. And I am trying to bring that movement into the place where it belongs, I believe, which is a movement of universal love and compassion for everyone, including people and where they are on their spiritual path. So it isn't that he's saying when you stop when you stop eating meat, you'll develop spiritually. What he is saying is, as you develop spiritually, you will want to do this and you will see a difference. That's what he's saying. Again, from As to Meat Eating, that's a really important essay. He says, God is calling you through the questioning of your soul, calling you to come up higher, up to the fullness of truth. God is setting you free, free from all thought of death, free from the need of killing. And in this, he's talking about the killing of animals, but of course, the need of all killing. Thou shalt not kill. All right, so that gives you a little taste of the Fillmores and what they had to say about spiritual development. The fourth topic was world peace. And this is so interesting because at many unity services, we end with the song, Let There Be Peace on Earth and Let It Begin with Me. And then we go partake in a feast that is often there because of very, very violent means. So it's something to think about. What does it mean to be peace? And can we have peace unless we are fully living in peace ourselves, not just with our fellow neighbors? Well, Jesus says, love one another, love your enemy, and love and be peace with all. So can we bring peace unto this planet as long as we're at war with ourselves, with war with our fellow humans, and as long as we are dominating and killing and harming animals? Charles would say no. We need never look for universal peace on this earth until men stop killing animals for food. He's connecting violence against animals with violence against humans. The lust for blood has permeated the human race thought, and the destruction of life will continue to repeat its psychology the world round until men willingly observe the law in all phases of life. Thou shalt not kill. So Charles expands the commandment, thou shalt not kill, to include all sentient life. And in the Unity Statement of Faith, 1921, it was said very clearly, we as Unity believe that all life is sacred and that man should not kill or be party to the killing of animals for food. Also, that cruelty, war, and wanton destruction of human life will continue as long as men destroy animals. Very, very, very interesting connection. I believe that's true. I don't see how we will have no violence on the planet as long as we're being violent to some. But what was interesting about this is after Charles passed, his son Lowell Fillmore took this out of the Unity Statement of Faith. I believe it was in 1939. He took this out, and not really sure, but I'm sure that, well, I'm not sure. I don't know, but I'm guessing that it was controversial and people were kind of like, Charles isn't around anymore. Do we have to do this vegetarian stuff still? Let's get rid of that thing. And so they took it out. And I think it's unfortunate. I think that Unity was really, really very, very, very just really, really, what is the word? It was flowing. It was growing, and it was just a beautiful, growing, very successful organization and movement. When people were kind of, they didn't have to adhere to this. The Fillmores never said they had to adhere to this, but they were in this conversation and working towards it, I think. Okay, the last topic is metaphysics and energy transference. And here's the idea is, there's a conservation of energy. Energy does not disappear. And the energy under our food enters our bodies. And Charles made the statement that we do not eat matter, we eat life. I think it's important to know that at the time of the Fillmores in the early 1900s, the incidence of animal slaughter was something around, I think, 52 million, something like that a year. We're at 9 billion a year over that in the United States right now. So the number of animals that were slaughtered during the Fillmores talking about this, we accomplished that in 2 days now. It's over 1 million an hour now. And I'm not bringing this up to make anyone feel guilty or bad or anything. I'm just bringing it up to ask the question, where does all that violence go? It doesn't disappear. I don't think we transform it just with a prayer of gratitude. It is out there, it's in consciousness, and it also enters our bodies. So this is what he had to say in the essay, Eating and Drinking. The invisible psychic agony of cruelly slaughtered animals saturates our Earth's atmosphere, and the whole race suffers in sympathy. We make intimate mental contact with these psychic terrors of our little sisters and brothers of the animal world when we devour their fear-shattered bodies. Our vague fear of impending danger, our troubled sleep, our dread of the future, our numerous other unidentified mental complexes may and often are the echo fears of the brutes whose flesh we've entombed in our stomach. Basically, he's saying we've created anxiety and fear in these beings, and we're transferring it into our own bodies when we eat of their flesh. From Flesh Metaphysically Considered, 1910, every animal fights for its life. What then can be the mental condition of the animal that has been cruelly forced into contracted pens and cars and finally deprived of its body amid the most terrifying sounds? You are taking into your temple elements that will unsettle it, elements that you will find difficult to harmonize. So those are some very, very passionate, clear, direct statements by the Fillmores on those 5 topics. And I have more in the booklet and I've got more in my drawer. I just wanted to share those teachings because I think it gives a glimmer, a glimpse into their souls, their psyches, and what they really believe. But what they saw, what they taught, and what they said was not where they stopped. They were so very, very forward thinking. And this is what I kind of want to end with, is just what they actually did. Because it's one thing to talk about, we're all one, we're good, we need to include the animals. But then most of us knew that they opened the Unity Inn, which is the first vegetarian restaurant in 1906 in Kansas City, with the purpose to demonstrate that man can live and live well on a meatless diet. And they used to go gather businessmen to come to their lunches and give them free vegetarian lunches so people could partake of something other than animal flesh. So this is something that they did. They put feet to their beliefs. They put their values in action. Now, but most of you don't know, in 1911, they started something called the Unity Pure Food Company, where they provided the public with alternatives to meat and animal fats, including butter. 1911. Now, I remember meat alternatives showing up, 25 years ago or so, and there's more and more now. But this is back in 1911. They created them themselves, and they sold them to people so that they could experience something other than meat that was meat-like. Same thing with animal fats. In 1911, the vegetarian became a regular column in the weekly Unity publication. And on the left side of the column, they presented moral arguments for vegetarianism. They didn't have the word vegan at the time. And on the right side, this is what I love, they had recipes. So people were like, okay, fine, what do I do with this? Then there were recipes on the right side. Here are some recipes. Here's how you can cook. And then they published in 1923. I have a copy of this, the Unity Inn Cookbook with all of Myrtle's recipes. And I don't have a picture of the Bible, but in 1923 they published a special Bible bound in something that was plant-based. It was a product called Caratol that wasn't leather. And in the Bible it said no leather or any animal product enters into this Bible or binding. Wow. 1923, 100 years ago. I go to the stores now and I'm just seeing leather alternatives kind of on a regular basis. It used to be you had to get on special websites and stuff like that. So they were doing this over 100 years ago. They were so forward thinking. So the takeaways that I encourage you to have is just to recognize that the Fillmores were exemplars. They were examples. We know they were examples of high consciousness beings, but as they were practical and as they expanded their compassion, they were really exemplars. They were willing to awaken to something that was completely contrary to their conditioning. I mentioned that I think that Charles's father probably traded in furs. Myrtle's dad was considered a farmer businessman. I don't know if they farmed animals or not, but they certainly grew up in an animal using life in their early years, probably with their parents. And when they learned about, they really saw that what they were serving for dinner, that was kind of contrary to what they were teaching, they woke up. And they changed. So they were really proficient at making connections, at recognizing that the violence we induce toward animals also connects to the violence that we commit towards humans. And as long as we have the idea of exploitation in our minds and in our hearts, wherever it is applied, we're going to have exploitation of people as well. Then they took action in alignment with their spiritual values of love and peace. So many of us stop there. We talk about love and peace, but then we go out and we, kick the proverbial dog or beat somebody, and I mean that in a symbolic way or metaphysical way, not necessarily actually. We could be mean on Facebook. We could blame somebody. We could yell at people. We could cut them off and all of that. But they really took action in alignment with their spiritual values of love and peace, and including all of creation. And they also courageously spoke openly and freely about their convictions. I spent many years of my life with my own personal convictions, but very quiet about it. It's my personal conviction. I'm not really going to talk about it. And I'm just so blown away by how much they were such courageous speakers, and they were peaceful teachers and advocates for all life. We've seen activists that get very, very violent. You can't be violent in your activism and expect there to be peace. They were peaceful teachers, and they were advocates for all life. And I just have this little diagram that I wanted to share with you because I believe that inner peace is kind of a congruency within us. And it's how, when we experience inner peace, we are in alignment. Our values, what we speak is in alignment with what we believe. And then what we speak, what we do is in alignment with our words and our values. And most of us live these lives where it overlaps a little bit. We talk about a lot of stuff, but we don't do. We value things, but we're not really in action. We say we're loved, but we do harmful things. And the Fillmores really brought those into alignment. Their values and their words and their actions were, when they realized they were out of alignment, when Harry Church showed them they were out of alignment, they brought them in alignment and they were in action. And I think this is one of the reasons they were such special people, in addition to everything else that we know about them. And just to leave you with some ideas for your own self, this inner dissonance and the incongruities we feel, and Charles alluded to them, they may manifest in restlessness, fear of death, fear of the future, anxiety, this and that. This inner dissonance we feel is when we're out of alignment. We could be speaking contrary to our values and beliefs. We could be not speaking what we believe. We could be having all these values about love and compassion for all beings and all sentient life, but not really taking action. Or we could be acting in ways that are not in line with our values. So I will leave it to you all to look at your values and to look at the words and to look at your actions and to decide for yourself as you dig more into this, are you in as much alignment as you would like to be? Because I think that's when we're going to experience inner peace, and we're all experiencing inner peace. That's when I think we'll be bringing peace on the planet. So just to end, we are consciousness creating. You all know that. I want to remind you to become as little children and step toward a more beautiful world every day. Notice that all children go towards the animals to love them, to touch them, to bring them to them, to hug them. They don't come forth with a knife. It is not in our nature. That's something that we're taught by our conditioning. If you're interested in participating in any of this discussion further or taking a deeper dive, I want to invite you to consider coming to my retreat this year. It's October 16th through 19th. We're in our 5th year. Every year we have a different theme, a different image. This year our theme is Homo Ahimsa, a new species, a new consciousness within us of non-harm for all is rising. And I do have a virtual option. You can learn more at thespiritualforum.org/retreat. Thank you, everyone, for your generous listening. This is just the icing on the cake of the Fillmore's teachings, but I wanted to give you a little taste.